creation energy, consciousness, psyche. SSSC 14.50. It's Wednesday, March 19, 2023. Billy.
Creation energy animates the personality and consciousness. And from consciousness emerges what is called psyche, which is not an organ but only a state of thinking, whereby the state of psyche is formed by thoughts. Thoughts, however, also contain the energy and power that feelings are triggered by them and then exist as a decisive part of the psyche state. It is therefore completely wrong to assume that the psyche is a component or an organ or the like of the body, for the psyche is truly and effectively only a status or a validity of what the human being creates for himself mentally and emotionally. Consequently, it is the case that, depending on how the human being shapes his thoughts, and thus also his feelings, either positively or negatively, his so-called psyche state has a negative or positive effect, and consequently forms a moral high or low. The human being's mood and state of mind also inevitably results from this, namely in such a way that his thoughts and feelings also have a positive or negative effect on his consciousness. In this wise, the most important factors that human beings create through their thoughts and feelings express themselves and thus shape the state of mind that only human beings really create for themselves, namely through how and what they develop mentally and emotionally, and how they shape and bring about their personal moral state. The human being evolves or develops, or he devolves and harms himself, by turning to this or that learning material in a controlled manner through his thoughts and feelings and devoting himself to it, thereby becoming more knowledgeable. This relates to and affects his so-called mental state, which, however, is only shaped by his thoughts and feelings, depending on whether these have negative or positive values. It should be explained that by thinking and developing feelings from this, the human being creates an which together also affects the consciousness, which stores everything and is thus preserved, but which also affects the state of personal morality. And this is done with regard to the corresponding negative or positive nature, so that everything degenerates positively or negatively according to how the thoughts and the feelings arising from them are formed. The thoughts and ideas also give rise to the resulting feelings, which manifest themselves as a mental state and thus represent what moves human beings at the center of their ego and from which the so-called mental state is formed. It is therefore fundamental to understand that this state can only come about because creation energy enlivens the consciousness of the personality, and thus offers human beings the opportunity to use this energy and power to create thoughts and feelings, either positive or negative, depending on the free will of the human being. If he shapes them in the positive, then his personal ego values and his moral state increase to high joy values and good feeling values, etc. But if the human being shapes his thoughts and feelings in the negative, then evil and bad ego values are created in the opposite direction, and these lead to a personal bad and evil moral state. Thus, the cultivation of thoughts and the creation of feelings in a positive wise, as well as life itself, are maintained in a good function and thus knowingly evolutionized. Or, if thoughts and feelings are created in a bad and negative wise, then everything becomes devolutionary. The so-called psyche state is thus formed out of consciousness. And this is nothing other than the state that results from positive or negative thoughts and feelings that can only be regulated and molded into the correct paths by the human being who created them. This does not require so-called psychiatrists or any medication to put everything back in order and become healthy again if a human being has a mental moral or if they are mentally ill. But they only need to resort to their logic, their mind, and their reason to cultivate their thoughts and feelings in a positive way again, and consequently leave out everything negative in this regard. Of course, this takes a lot of time and rest. Often, if the demolished thought-feeling state is profound, even 2 or 3 years or even 4. But in fact, it doesn't take money-hungry psychiatrists who can never help, but only yourself to put your own negative thoughts and feelings back in order. Negative thoughts and feelings back into order by bringing everything and everyone back to the best state of positive thoughts and feelings, and making your health whole and smiling again. The human being alone determines his or her own condition, which is so-called psychic, through thoughts and feelings that are formed and nurtured in the negative or positive. Creation energy alone ensures that the consciousness of human beings functions as part of their personality, and that the thoughts and feelings that emerge from it determine the so-called psyche state and keep it functioning. The human being is solely responsible for himself in this respect. Ho, as explained, determines through his thoughts and feelings, in a wise way, that everything is normal, good and positive, or whether negative thoughts and bad feelings cause a bad moral state that is even detrimental to the body and health. Good and positive thoughts and feelings at all times, which bring about an objective, life-affirming mental state, are what every human being needs in every situation, and this is something that should always be taken care of, one way or another. The personality and the consciousness, like the fantasized psyche, which exists only in words, are much more and completely different in their function than is generally claimed by science. Consciousness, which is animated to function solely by creation energy via the personality, is on the one hand responsible in every form, not only for perceiving, judging, and forming the experience of mental processes and states in all senses, but also for consciously recognizing something as knowledge and representing it through this. Consciousness is the creation energy energized factor that conveys real knowledge to every human being through the seeing, experiencing, and learning of reality and its undeniable truth.